So how do your big, important SAP systems actually talk to all the other applications you're running without turning into a complete nightmare? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the SAP AMQP adapter. It's basically the key that unlocks smooth communication between your SAP world and everything else. Let's jump right in.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with what I call the integration puzzle. Then we'll meet our hero, the AMQP adapter. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how it sends and receives messages, see who it can talk to, and wrap up with some pro tips to make sure your setups are rock solid.
All right, let's set the stage with this fundamental challenge, the integration puzzle. I mean, think about it. In any modern business, you've got tons of different specialized apps, but how on earth do you make them all play nice and work together?
You've got your e-commerce site over here, your CRM over there, a logistics system somewhere else, and of course, your giant SAP system at the heart of it all. The data from one is absolutely critical for another, but the problem is they all speak their own unique language.
So what do? I mean, you could connect every single system directly to every other system, but you'd quickly end up with this fragile, tangled web that everyone calls spaghetti architecture. It's a total mess and impossible to manage. There's got to be a better way, right?
And there is. It's called a message broker. The best way to think about it is like a central post office for all your software. One application just drops off a message, and the broker makes sure it gets delivered to the right place, safe and sound. This is huge because it decouples everything, making your whole IT landscape way more flexible and so much easier to maintain.
Okay, so if the message broker is our postal service, how does SAP actually send and receive its mail? Well, that's where our main character comes in, the SAP AMQP adapter. This is SAP's special bridge to that whole world of messaging.
Now here's the key thing to remember. This adapter is a specific piece inside the SAP Integration Suite, and its one and only job is to speak the language of these message brokers, a protocol called AMQP 1.0. This lets SAP act as either a consumer, meaning it's receiving data, or a provider, meaning it's sending data out.
You can really think of this adapter as having two distinct personalities. On one hand, you have the sender adapter. This one listens. It connects to a broker and just consumes all the incoming data. Then you have the receiver adapter, and this one talks. It takes data from SAP and sends it out into the world, listening and talking. At its core, that's all it does.
So let's dig a little deeper into those two personalities. How do you actually set them up to listen and talk the right way? The details matter.
When you're configuring the sender, our listener, it really boils down to three things. First, the connection. You just tell it the address of the message broker and how to log in securely, using things like SASL or OAuth 2. Second is the source. You have to be super specific about which queue or which digital mailbox it's supposed to be listening to. And third, you set the rules. This is where you define its behavior, like how many messages it should try to handle at the same time. And there are a couple of really critical rules for the sender you got to know. It can listen to a specific queue. Think of that as a private mailbox for just one person. Or it can listen to something called a topic subscription, which is kind of like getting your own personal copy of a public newsletter. But, and this is important, it can't just listen to the main newsletter, the topic itself. It needs that personal subscription. And you absolutely have to create that queue in the message broker before you tell SAP to listen to it.
Now let's flip it around and look at the receiver, the talker. The setup is pretty similar. Step 1, the connection, is exactly the same. But step 2 is all about the destination. Here, you define where the message is going. And unlike the sender, you can send directly to a queue or a topic. Finally, you define the message itself. Do you need it to be persistent so it survives a server crash? And is it text or some kind of binary data?
So we know how it works, but who can it talk to? This is where the adapter really starts to shine, you know? It's not just for connecting SAP stuff to other SAP stuff. Not at all. I mean, just look at this. Of course, it works perfectly with SAP's own event mesh, but it also has fantastic support for the heavy hitters out there, like Azure Service Bus and IBM MQ. This kind of flexibility is a game changer. It means you can plug SAP into pretty much any modern messaging setup you can think of. Okay, we've covered the what and the how. For this last section, let's talk about the details, the little things that take an integration from just working to being truly reliable and robust. These are the pro tips.
Let's kick things off with this setting on the sender side, max number of prefetched messages. Basically, this tells the adapter how many messages to grab from the queue ahead of time, almost like a buffer. A high number, like 100, is awesome for performance if you're processing tons of small messages really fast, because it cuts down on the back and forth chatter with the broker.
But, and there's always a but, right? There's a trade-off. If your process for each message is long and complicated, say it takes over a minute, you actually want a low prefetch value, maybe even just one. Why? Because it helps spread the work evenly if you have multiple server nodes running. So a high value gives you a tiny speed boost per message, but a low value gives you much better overall system balance.
And finally, what happens when things go wrong? 'Cause, let's be real, they will. You have to build a safety net. First, set a max number of retries. If you don't, a single bad message could get retried forever, clogging up your system. Then, once it hits that limit, you tell it to mark the delivery status as rejected. This is like telling the broker, hey, I tried my best, but I give up on this one. A properly configured broker will then move that failed message to a special dead letter queue, where someone can look at it later without stopping everything else. That's how you build a system that can take a punch.
So, there you have it. The SAP AMQP adapter isn't just some dry technical component. It's a really powerful bridge that connects your core SAP systems to a whole universe of other applications. Now that you know what's possible,